So good afternoon, my name is Sanjay Fox from the Access Group and I'm here today with Gareth Morgan. Gareth is the Managing Director from Advanced Manufacturing Sheffield, also known as AML, formed in 2012 and based within the Sheffield Science Park in the north of England. AML provide precision engineering and manufacturing services to different industry sectors, including aerospace, oil and gas and nuclear, working with both small companies and blue chip clients, including the likes of Boeing and Rolls-Royce. Gavin has kindly agreed to share his experience with the recent challenges faced, insight into how the business has adapted, and his thoughts on what the future looks like for AML and manufacturing. Good afternoon, Gareth. Thank you very much for joining us. How are you today?
Good afternoon, sir. Doing very well. Thank you, Sanjay.
Good. So, having worked with AML since 2013, and I must say that's been an absolute pleasure. We've seen the business grow from strength to strength. Yeah. So, before we talk about some of the more recent challenges, do you want to tell us a little bit more about AML, its roots, and what's driven this success?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Well, in my previous life, I had the fortunate opportunity to work at the AMRC, the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre in Sheffield. Yeah. It's a big university research centre sponsored by industry, initially set up by Boeing, and I was luckily enough to be one of the first 10 staff members of that, what became quite a famous research centre. I had lots of mentors while I worked there, particularly under Professor Keith Ridgway and Adrian Allen, who are the two founding fathers of it. Right. And there became a need in about 2008, 2009 to set up a commercial spin-out company that could facilitate some of these projects that we were developing in terms of advanced manufacturing capability and develop and offer a commercial solution. And that's really what AML was set up to do. We initially incubated inside the university organisation for a period of time, and then we spun out into our own shop floor production capability. And now we're a standalone supplier in our own right. Biggest two customers are Rolls-Royce and Siemens. We're mainly gas turbine focused, and we have full capabilities from an MRP planning system with you guys and lots of other whiz-bang solutions as well. And we also export globally.
Right, well, thank you for that. I noticed on the website the reference to the AMRC and there being a centre of excellence, and I know we've talked about that before, so it's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And I noted that you work across a number of different industry sectors, and history's proven, well, some sectors see growth, others decline. How easy have you found that to move into new sectors, and do you have any tips or recommendations on how to diversify?
I think from our side, whatever anyone says, cross-sectional support is actually quite a difficult thing to keep achieving. You know, we've had quite a period of time with narrow focus in the past, particularly in civil aerospace. But we've always tried to have a strategy where we look across sectors to where our technologies could have a best fit and try and follow the technology as the opportunity rather than the product or the customer. And that type of approach, if you can try and match your advanced capabilities to match with multi-sector opportunities, then that has actually led to a more robust business model that we've had, in particularly in the last 3 to 4 years.
Right. So you've taken that knowledge, experience and technology in effect, and then that's opened up doors into other sectors, into new sectors.
Yeah, I mean, the advantage of being next door to the AMRC and its first ever spin-out company obviously means there's a network within those consortiums that is across other sectors, and using that sort of network of collaboration to support us to open up new doors has helped, but also our commitment and our discipline, which is to stay close and true to your competitive advantages rather than necessarily getting too narrow in terms of your focus.
Yeah. No, thank you. That's a really interesting point, because the question's coming up more often than not at the moment, as manufacturers maybe are solely in one sector, for example, commercial aerospace, and they are asking, the questions I get asked is, have you got any thoughts on how you can diversify into other sectors? But we have seen that more recent years, probably after the last downturn, I guess, where businesses said, well, actually oil and gas is slow, so we'll move into other areas that we've got expertise and become another centre of excellence in effect.
Well, I've actually helped obviously with the recent times, everyone has to have a bit of an inward look at themselves as well as what they're going to do in 2 years' time, which is my usual role, but actually support the business in this really difficult time that's happened in the last 6 months. And we got to the stage where we're giving sort of communication briefs to the teams 3 times a week in the height of the lockdown to try and A, reassure the staff, and B, follow up the plans we've made. But I just gave a recent brief yesterday, actually, and stood in front of the team. And my motto is, if we keep delivering for our customers, good things will happen. And if that same thing applies, if you stick to some of the opportunities you see by applying advanced technique, then usually that means you can access these different sectors pretty quickly and keep problem solving for these larger companies. AML is still a small business. It's an SME. It's fairly agile. I know it's difficult for other businesses to be like that. We really pride ourselves for being the earliest adopter of new technology. And from that, it means sometimes we can apply these things a lot quicker than others. But we also have to maintain this view that whatever we do have available to us, we deliver with full gusto and full support. And that does help in terms of being able to try and ride this storm out that I think a lot of people are facing.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. It's really interesting. And you mentioned there about the sort of regular meetings and regular get-togethers, and how you found staff morale, and how you found delivering that as well with communication and people getting into the office. How's that looked?
Well, we had various good IT tools, MRP infrastructure that you guys help us with. We've also got a very good IT partner that helps us with remote access in terms of teams throughout the business, remote central databases throughout the business. All the data stored up in the cloud, and all that was put in place, believe it or not, around December last year. So I can't claim that I could see every issue coming. And to
you didn't have a magic ball then that you looked in.
I was questioning why we're doing that in our busiest month of the calendar year, but we did it, and actually, thank the Lord we did, because it made ourselves a bit more robust. We could offer people a lot more options in terms of flexible working. We could have guys remote logging in from engineering departments and quality departments, whether on site or off site. Made little impact to their efficiency, which was very, very good. And obviously, I think if we had not had some of those systems in place and invested in, which they did take a bit of investment to get up and running, then we'd have struggled a lot more. From a communication standpoint, at some point as the MD, you've got to take the accountability that the near term now is the priority, not necessarily the future. And my role, I see it as I'm always looking at what we are doing. What's the 2-year plan? What's the 3-year plan? The 5-year plan? The reality is, at that time, my focus was on the next 3 months. And my job was to make sure that every aspect of the plan that we put together to get through this immediate uncertainty was actually rolled out. We went to daily meetings. We had people dialing in using Teams. The stand-up meetings had a Teams entrance, so anyone who was remote working, who was shielding, who was under self-isolation, they could remote log in and still be part of all the team briefs and all the meetings that were required. And then from a morale standpoint, I do think we got actual, dare I say it, very tough times outside of work and all the challenges that came. There's people who had various issues with childcare, work support of partners. There was a few people with bereavements in our business, which is very difficult. But the actual general morale of coming togetherness was actually improved, because I think it gave people a lot more insight in terms of what was happening day to day. We spent up to 3 hours a week on briefings with the various shift leaders and middle management that we have. And I did actually think there was a real, positive spirit with such a difficult, uncertain time outside of work.
I think also, and we've all experienced this, is that during that early stage, you couldn't turn your telly on, you couldn't turn your iPad to the news without reading about COVID and a guesstimate of what will happen to our economy and our civilization. So it was with you all the time, every day, wasn't it, really?
Yeah.
And you take that with you take that into work, you bring that home. You do your best not to, but obviously it raises concerns and uncertainty. And those meetings are important, aren't they, to keep that morale up? And
I think
that infinite mindset kind of thing as well.
I think showing the human face to it, to the guy who, who's on the buttons. We're a manufacturing business, so, there's a range of skill sets we have in the business. And I, the business owner, founder and leader was accessible to them 3 times a week in the height of the lockdown. And I do think that type of openness and dialogue really helped with them. They have a Q&A session at the end of each brief, and they are available to voice any concerns to me that is then directed to their team leader in terms of how we deal with it. We actually tried to help as much as we could. We offered special support for people who had self-isolation requirements. We offered very good terms for sick pay beyond the normal SSP. We were funded by the business, by the government, and that gave a motivation to staff to be honest with their symptoms, not to fear for their role. Even if they were a new starter and they were 6 weeks in, they were still handled in the same way as someone who'd been with us 5 years plus. So that extra support, and there was a price tag against it, got a feeling of openness and honesty with a global crisis, and that really did bring the team together further to try and come together and pull through. That being said, the big focus for me was obviously how we stay resilient, how we keep delivering the programs of work that we had. We are a business that helps Prime solve problems using our technology, and the end result of that is we produce parts that are used to fix an issue typically. We supply parts to the Rolls-Royce and Siemens, and they are very, very large businesses, and they expect appropriate support. And our priority was to keep making sure we carried on in the factory to deliver. We actually had to expand capacity during lockdown. We put a new machine in, and we actually recruited 6 people while other people were actually furloughing.
Wow,
so
right.
It is, we did make sure that jobs were still kept to the heart of the factory, because obviously it's key that we keep delivering for our partners.
And it's how did you find that recruitment? I get was there more? I was probably a strange question to ask. Was there more availability in the marketplace of skilled people? I know it's always difficult to find good people that are skilled.
I think the business really has 2 pillars to it, and one of them is technology, and we've laboured that a few times already. But to have the ability to be the earliest adopter of the latest technology, you have to have good culture. And you can't get good culture without good people. So we invest a lot in that area. We're working with a local government agency to subsidise some of our training costs, called the Skills Bank.
Right.
That's really helping roll out some training and support, and that's really helped with skills retention, staff morale, and we were doing all that pre-COVID. And really, what this has done is heighten the whole situation that you're only as good as your core team. So we've definitely retained that focus. It has definitely made us come together more, but also I think it shows that the people are your biggest asset, and you must make sure they are well looked after.
Well, thank you. It's a really interesting insight, because a lot of manufacturers that we work with do talk about how difficult it is to find good people. So it's a really interesting insight. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And a lot of discussions at the moment around post-COVID as well, and a different way of working post-COVID. What would you say AML have learned from this experience, and were there any unexpected benefits?
Well, I think there's personal opinion and there's AML's near experience. So I'll do personal opinion first. I mean, one thing I would say, we're an advanced manufacturing business, and I've worked in advanced manufacturing my entire career. And I would say that what manufacturing gives to the broader economy is long-term stability. It's on a global scale. It can retain jobs across the different things this country is good at. And I think hopefully it will show that the sort of short-term wins offsetting long-term risks is no longer the way to support the economy, and maybe a rebalancing and a long-term view that more medium-term opportunities mean better job retention in the future.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point, because I think you look at manufacturing in the UK, and I've been quite amazed how businesses have adopted during these times, and how they've evolved and found other channels and new ways of working, and that we've just got on with it. I think maybe it's a British way. I'll be careful what I say, because I don't want to be political and that.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's definitely something I've seen across my clients in manufacturing across the UK, and that sort of can-do attitude, really.
yeah.
So if we talked around sort of things you've learned from COVID. I mean, what about sort of best practice going forward for both AML and manufacturing? Do you see that changing much, or do you think there's things that you'll take forward as part of best practice?
Well, there's obviously the basics of making sure your staff are kept safe, which we've maintained and followed through. I think that, as I dare say, the new normal will be part of that for a medium time, as sad as it is. So yes, we make sure those things are rolled out. You know, the social distancing, the support to staff and whatnot. What I would say is the extras. You know, when we had to send staff home, work remotely, and make sure the factory was running, really made us embrace these systems we've already invested in. So we do a lot of work with you guys, Access, with our factory master systems, with Orchestrate, with our central planning tools. But we also had a lot of, sort of remote working systems in place that weren't really as fully utilised as they could be. And from that, now they are absolutely key day to day for how this business runs. And I think being able to say you've got a fully integrated IT system with data running through the business, really in terms of pushing the boundaries of what I 4.0 was meant to be, then I think we have had to accelerate that due to the crisis, and we'll keep using that as a tool going forward.
Thank you for that. I mean, it's again, there's a number of things. The Industry 4.0 was very much on the tip of a lot of people's tongue, and I think it meant different things to different people as well. I think it's fair to say that, working across different sectors. And again, COVID has been front and centre for some time now. But what are your thoughts for the future as far as Industry 4.0 and obviously Brexit, which is going to be with us very shortly?
Yeah, well, I think Industry 4.0 is a generic term, but the bottom line is, it's not just for a UK-wide issue, but it's a general manufacturing issue. You have to keep looking at improving your productivity year on year. If you don't improve that, then generally your offer diminishes, no matter how good your starting standpoint of the latest capability. So we measure ourselves on that every year, and I 4.0 is part of that. Automation is part of that. Data-driven processes is part of that, and adopting the latest techniques is also part of that. So the whole KPI of improving productivity year on year is a key facet. And I think unless you keep striving to evolve and improve, at some point you become someone who's essentially going to be a weaker supplier. We know we're a young business in this environment, and we have to keep striving for best practice going forward.
And I think that's even more now following COVID to an extent, isn't it? I think businesses have taken they have had some time to take a closer look at their operations and actually think, you know, when we come out of this, and again, it reflects back to the downturn around 2010. Businesses came out of that and said, right, we need to be more efficient, we need to be more productive, we need to think how to do things differently. And I think that will come from once we get to that stage, you know, where businesses start to think further ahead. I think we'll see more of that, and technology as well, using technology, not just our technology, but any types of technology to advance their offerings and the way they operate.
Yeah, exactly. And if you know, to finish on the Brexit point, you know, the uncertainty of it is probably worse than whichever side of the divide you sit. You know, so I won't comment on where I was. I do think uncertainty is the biggest killer, particularly in manufacturing, because it's basically done on a long-term investment basis. You have to get your reward over a longer time period. There is stability in the economy while you do that, and jobs are retained and improved upon. But uncertainty does disrupt that, and I think getting a certain position is the key thing really for anything going on with Brexit going forward. So I know we're leaving, and that date is set, and it looks like it's sprinting towards us. Framework of what that really means is still unknown in terms of process and tariff and whatnot. We do export products to the EU. Luckily for us, in some areas they are under the guise of a UK umbrella, so I don't actually see that as a near-term issue. We're exporting to North America currently, and that has a trade tariff on it, and it's just something that we run and deal with. So I think the uncertainty is the biggest barrier, rather than which side of whether it was a good idea or not. I think that ship has sailed.
Yes, it's very much about confidence, isn't it? And that flows through the economy and from public down through to businesses, and the stronger the confidence, the more certainty you generally have in an economy. So no, I really appreciate your insights and sharing your experiences through COVID and your thoughts around the future. That's really appreciated. This is Gareth Morgan from Advanced Manufacturing Sheffield. Thank you for your time today.